We are back on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, 1000 KKIM, and across the internet on knookmedia.com. Our guest by phone is the former senator of the great state of New Hampshire, the Granite State, Bob Smith. And Senator Smith, right now you're in the middle of a primary that is going to be next Tuesday, right?
Yes, yep. Less than a week now.
Yeah, and your opponent is another Republican, Scott Brown, who was the senator out of Massachusetts.
Yeah, we've been saying sort of Republican.
Yeah.
He's pro-abortion. He's anti-gun. He voted for Dodd-Frank. He voted with the Republicans, I think, in the last year, less than 30% of the time. So that's kind of a loose term to call him a Republican, but, I'm a platform Republican. I support the platform, the planks in it, and proudly so, and I think we need to coalesce around that platform if we're going to mean anything and have a real meaning to who we are, and that would be, in my view, the best way to do it, to unite behind that platform, those good principles.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And I don't know, what is the fascination with him? Because, I've seen a couple of interviews on one show in particular. I don't want to mention their name, but it's a fairly conservative show. And they were interviewing him as if he was running against a Democrat and he didn't have a primary to go through. It's almost
this is what's been happening. And, what can I say? I mean, they're promoting it. I mean, there are letters that are being sent out. Probably some of your listeners got them, and it said, hey, it's Brown versus Shaheen. It's very close. Send money. But what they're not telling you is there's a primary on September 9th, and there are two other good candidates in it, myself and another guy, and Brown. So it's not over by any means. And believe me, we've got strong support out there, and people are really rallying. We had a rally, a concert the other day, a concert combined rally with almost 1,000 people in attendance at one rally, and the press didn't even cover it. I mean,
wow.
That's how outrageous it is, in the sense that they just don't want to recognize the fact that, up here in New Hampshire, we like to count the votes before we declare the winner. We don't need anybody to tell us how to vote, and we think we can do that quite fine, thank you. And it reminds me of 1996, when everybody said I was going to lose in my race to a guy named Dick Sweat. And he was called the winner in the newspapers, and Dan Rather called him the winner, Al Gore called him and congratulated him. And you know what? When we finished counting the votes, Bob Smith was the winner, and Dick Sweat had the shortest Senate term in the history of New Hampshire politics.
Sounds a little bit like Dewey Truman, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it does. Exactly. In fact, there's a headline that said Sweat defeats Smith, and it was Dewey defeats Truman all over again. I love it.
Yeah. There's that famous picture of Truman holding on to that newspaper. You ought to get a copy of that for yourself. And you're a real Reagan Republican. I mean, I remember reading your story, and it was really Reagan that ignited your passion for public service.
It really was. He was the one that got me really motivated. I supported him. I really got involved with Reagan and really liking him when he gave that speech for Barry Goldwater in 1964. Then I realized that, A, he had a great ability to deliver a message, number one. Number two, he delivered a message on principle. And number three, I really felt that he was going to be a rising star. And, of course, he obviously, as you know, became governor twice of the state of California, and then, of course, on to the presidency. So, yeah, I mean, he was a great man. And what really inspired me about Reagan was his ability to stand on principle. One of my favorite quotes from him was, nothing but bold colors, no pale pastels. Let the voters know the difference between you and them. Who are we? Who are they? And in order to do that, you got to stick to your principles. And if you do, you'll win, and Reagan proved it.
Yeah, definitely. We're having a conversation with former senator of the great state of New Hampshire, Bob Smith, who is running for the Senate again. So, and in your situation, as again, you're a Reagan Republican. You served as a congressman on the Veterans Affairs. You were a U.S. Senator from 1990 to 2003, so you've got the background and you've got the conservative credentials. So, again, I'm a little miffed to look at the Republican Party and go, why the heck aren't you backing this guy instead of a Republican wannabe?
Well, that's the question that you'd have to ask the establishment of the party in both Washington and Concord, New Hampshire. But I think, you know what? I mean, I'm not. I'm upbeat. I'm positive. We got a great ground team. Mm-hmm. We're going to win, and they're all going to have egg on their face. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. And it's going to be another Virginia. It's going to be, where they spent, I don't know, about $6 or $7 or $8 million against this guy who spent only $250,000, and he came out with the winner. Because people are tired of it. They're just tired of that stuff. And in New Hampshire especially, which is a retail state, I mean, this is you've got to get out there and meet the voters, and that's what we've been doing for the last year.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you one question. I know we only have a couple more minutes with you, and I really appreciate you squeezing the time in for us. When you were a congressman, you were in at the same era with Newt Gingrich, who's a person we've had on the show before, and you gentlemen came up with a book called House of Ill Repute. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Remember that? Well, yeah, that was fun. That was there were 10 of us, I believe. It was 10. All members of Congress, all conservatives. We had a group called the Conservative Opportunity Society. We met in a closet in the Capitol every week, and we were always, Newt would organize it. We would divide up the night, and somebody would have an hour, and another guy would have another hour. We did what was called special orders, where you'd speak for an hour about an issue or that, and we would take the Democrats on a lot of things, on the corruption of the House, on the liberalism, the debt, all of the things that were ruining our country. And from that, we had the idea to write this book. It was really self-published. We published it with some funds that were raised for that purpose. But it's fascinating. In fact, I took that book out the other day and read it. It was fascinating to read it because all the things that were predicted in there, were so true. But unfortunately, once we got into the leadership, then we made some of the same mistakes of the people we threw out, which is another problem with the party. You've got to stick to your principles.
Exactly. You can tell I did the research for this interview.
You did. I'm impressed. I'll tell you what. I could not find House of Ill Repute on. When I Googled it, I couldn't find it. Did you find it on Google?
No, I didn't. In fact, after the show, I was going to look for it, see if I could get myself a copy of it.
I could not find it. Normally, you can find almost anything on Google, but if any of the Google people are listening, I don't think it's on there, and it should be, because it's a good little book. And but yeah, you really did your research. I'll tell you.
Well, I'll tell you.
I'm impressed.
Thank you, Bob. And if I can find a copy of the book, I'll let you know. Okay. Your website, if people want to donate or want to find out more about your campaign or want to be involved, your website?
Bob Smith for USSenate.com. Bob Smith for FOR, Bob Smith for USSenate.com. And it's all on there, everything, all the issues, everything you want to know, bio, all of it. And election's coming fast, and anything you can do to help would be appreciated. And
if you're looking for a pro-life, pro-gun, anti-Obamacare candidate, I highly, highly recommend this man. Senator Smith, thank you so much for the time, and hopefully we'll be talking to you in the next couple of weeks and have you on when you're up against your Democratic opponent. Well, it'll be fun to talk to you as a nominee. I'll tell you, we're going to take this right to Jeanne Shaheen. I mean, I'm a confirmed believer that I don't care what political party you are or where you're from, or what what political philosophy you may have. I don't think you like to be spied upon, and I don't think you want somebody else to tell you who your doctor should be and so forth. You go on down these issues, and especially the violation of freedoms where you have the NSA spying. I don't think people like that, and I think that once we link up Jeanne Shaheen with President Obama, because she supports him on this stuff, I think we defeat her big time. But you have to show the difference. You have to, when a voter goes to the booth
that voter's got to be able to say, wow, Smith is on this side, and she's on that side, and I'm on Smith's side on this. I don't want to be spied on.
Definitely.
I don't like the fact that babies are discarded in buckets like garbage in abortions. I don't like the fact that my Second Amendment rights aren't protected with her. I don't like the fact that she's telling me that I can't have my own doctor. You know, I don't like the fact that I'm being harassed because of my political views, and on and on and on. And I think that's what Reagan was able to do. Reagan could appeal to people in that way, and that's how we win.
Definitely.
Stand on your principles. Let them know what we stand for. Let them figure out what they stand for, and we'll be the winners.
Senator, thank you so much for the time.
You're very welcome, Marty. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio News Talk 1180.